the Chinook, but as you'll see that most of the stuff with the Chinook also is basically the same stuff we do with the Toho and the steel egg. So this year, we'll start with the spawning. Now some of these pictures are from Wisconsin, some of them are from Michigan. So this year we're actually going to be going up to Wisconsin next week to get Chinook eggs due to the house and stuff in Michigan not being able to come to an agreement. Michigan was not sure if they were going to be able to supply us with our Chinook eggs, so we were being a little proactive and already scheduled to go up to Wisconsin. Up at Racine, we'll be going and collecting them out of the Root River. We go up there with a 4-man crew and we'll be spawning the fish. You can see here, let me see, it starts with collecting the eggs out of the female. You can see right here there's a little needle that we inject and we put air into the body cavity of the fish. It gently forces the eggs out. Then from there we add the milk to it. The milk is actually water activated. So they'll add water to it. I don't think I have any pictures of that, but the water will get added to it, and then some other disinfection and thiamine. Alewives contain a thiaminase that blocks the absorption of thiamine. And back years ago when Chinooks were dying, it was because of that lack. They were calling it EMS, but it was actually the lack of thiamine. So we're water hardening the eggs in thiamine. When the eggs first come out, they're a little gushy, soft. So as we also disinfect them with iodine to prevent VHS, and then it takes about 2 hours for the eggs to completely absorb everything they're going to absorb, and then they're hard, like a solid rubber. They're almost like a bouncing jack. You can drop them and they'll bounce. So at that point, they've absorbed enough iodine to disinfect and kill any viruses or bacteria or anything that's in the egg, and then they absorb the thiamine to help prevent that EMS. So we basically load them up in buckets and drive them back. It's water, buckets, and eggs. Then once we get back, so Thursday when we collect them is going to be a long day. We'll get up we'll be spawning at 7 o'clock in the morning. We'll get back to the hatchery probably about 6 o'clock in the evening. And then it'll probably take us 2 to 3 hours to tray up the 800,000 eggs that we're collecting, hopefully. So we tray up all these eggs and then they go into our incubation stacks. Each one of these incubation stacks has about 4 gallons of water running through it, and that water trickles down through all of those eggs to keep them fresh. Then after a few weeks, we get the eggs will get to an eyed stage where you can actually see the eyes of the fish, and that's when we run them through these pickers. But prior to that, we shock them. What we do is we dump the eggs from about 16 inches down into the water. What this does is it ruptures the membranes, kills some of the eggs, of the weak eggs that are going to die anyways, and it will turn them white. Once those eggs are white, then we run it through the picker. Down here, this is where we load the hopper for the picker. The wheel spins around. Don't ask me how this thing works. Some photos thing. But it'll spit mostly white eggs out in one basket, and then the other basket spits out mostly good eggs. From there, you can see this is a tray before we pick it, and then this is after. So they'll stay in there for a few weeks, then they'll start getting ready to hatch. And there'll still be some eggs that die and they clump up, so then we go through and pick all those clumps out by hand. I don't know if you can see this or not. So this is before we shock. We do counts. You can see this is the percentage of good. So the average is almost 78%, which actually this was a good year. Sometimes it's down around 60. We have a blank number. So this blank number is the eggs that probably didn't get fertilized or didn't progress beyond fertilization. They have no eyes. So we just call them blank. If this number was down around 3% or so, we wouldn't even bother shocking them. But since it's 10 and a half, we go ahead and chuck the eggs. So we let the eggs sit for a couple days because it takes a couple days for those eggs to turn white. After that, we do another count. We're still roughly at the same percentage of good, but we have lost a lot of the blank eggs. And those blank eggs are the large portion of what will actually die in that tray later, or will turn white. Then this is after we pick, so you can see the percent of good eggs is way up there. The white eggs, the numbers are way down. So then, we try to tray up the eggs because we'll split. You'll see some of these might be 1 liter per tray, some of them might be 2 liters, 1.5. We don't go over 2 liters per tray once they've been picked. Those trays will support so many hatched fish. And 2 trays, or 2 liters is roughly, can't remember, about 8,000, I think 8,000 fry or so. But there's a maximum number, and that's all. So when we pull them out, we go off of a 5-year average. When we go to pawn them, I don't think I have any of that data, but we'll have the 5-year average. And based on that is how many trays we'll put, how many liters we'll put into each inside tank, because each tank has a maximum number of fish that we can, we just can't fill it full of fish. This is some of the stuff. This is actually a microscope of the egg. You can see the eyes of the fish here. This is after they hatch. They have that yolk sac. They'll absorb it. These are just deformed fish, twins and stuff. But they'll absorb that yolk sac for a couple weeks. And then once that's all absorbed up, you'll see like a line on their belly where they get buttoned up or whatever. And then they start swimming up to the surface. And that's when we put them into the inside tanks because they're searching for food. They'll come up to the surface and start pecking at anything that's on the surface. So we start sprinkling in a little bit of food here and there. So these are our tanks. We call these cradles. We'll put the eggs or the fry in there when we first put them into these tanks. And then what it does is a lot of the white eggs that are still in the tray will sit in this, and the fish can swim out of that as they're ready, so they can recover and stuff. Makes it a little easier for us later on to clean out the tanks. So here is basically, so you can see this is the number of trays. Over here I have the liters. So the D tanks are the taller ones, so they can hold more fish. Technically, I think we should only be putting 22,000 fish in each of those tanks. I push it a little bit. Then the smaller tanks, I think it's usually around 16. But we tend to see higher mortality with the Chinook right off the bat. Even it could be some lingering EMS. There's been some other studies out there that actually the iodine that we're disinfecting the eggs with blocks the absorption also of the thiamine. So we've tried switching our ways around, doing the thiamine first, but it's a catch-22. Do you risk getting VHS because you decided to water harden first with thiamine, or do you risk getting EMS? We'd rather risk getting EMS. We can do a second treatment on the fish right after they hatch. We'll do a standing bath, those green troughs. We'll do them with 1,000 parts per million of thiamine in that trough. We'll put those baskets of eggs in there and let them sit in there for 30 minutes. And then we pull them out and put them back in the trays, and they'll absorb the thiamine that way also. So once they get to be about 2.5 to 2 3/4 inches, we move them out of these tanks and put them into our outside ponds. Usually when we do that, we use 5-gallon buckets. I think Harry may have helped us with that one year. We'll put about 20 pounds of water in a 5-gallon bucket. Then we put about 10 pounds of fish in that bucket. And everybody carries out 1 bucket in each hand because it kind of balances you, but you carry the buckets out and dump them in the ponds. We don't have any other simpler methods to do it. So it usually takes us about 5 hours to get all that done. So this is, you've seen what the numbers were possibly when we started. What was it? Was it 18,000. So this is what our sheet count was after all the dead fish that we counted. Over here, our recovery and the tank count is what we actually got when we did our weight sample. So sometimes we'll be a little high, sometimes we're a little under. But this year, overall, our recovery was almost 104%. So that's just saying that we had 4% more fish than what we thought we had. You can see, so here's our flow index. You can see we got pretty high here. Normally, we don't want to get above a 1.4. We were in the 2s. Density index, we'll get to a 0.5. You can see we were even pushing the densities. But you can see our number here, we actually wanted more fish, but I think the fish were a little bigger than what we were shooting for over here. So basically what I'm saying is our inside system is maxed out. I have pushed it to the limit. I don't think we can do any more. In the past, when those fish first hatched and were at the swim up stage, we used to put 2/3 of the fish, we'd start them outside in the pond. We'd hand feed them because the feed doesn't go through the feeders. We'd hand feed them. Well, you can't pull the pipes to clean because the fish will suck them through the screen. Any of the uneaten food sinks to the bottom, and I'm sure the net pen people can contest to what uneaten food looks like in the bottom of a pen. It grows a fungus. There's no way you can clean it until the fish are close to 2.5 inches. We've got a pool vac that we'll use, but you can't use it until they're so big because otherwise they don't swim away from it and you suck them up. So we've decided that we're not going to start to fish outside anymore. It's not healthy for the fish. It's not easy for us. It's a pain. So our chores in the morning, we'll come in, we'll throw feed in the feeders, then we clean every pond. There's a center pipe that we pull, we brush the screens, pull out the dead fish every day. Usually when we stress the fish, like these Chinook, after about 2 weeks after we move them outside, they'll get bacterial gill disease. To treat that, we use some chloramine T, and it's a 3-day treatment, and it hits them pretty good and knocks them down. It's not a cheap drug though. I think 25 kilogram container is about $1,200.
Jesus.
And I don't know if you can see it or not. This is a slide that we make off of the gill of the fish to diagnose what disease the fish has. This little stringy stuff here that's kind of segmented is the gill bacteria. This one here is just couple little ones right there. So then the trailer comes, and some of you have seen it or whatever, but so this is, it all goes through there. It gives you your average length. You got your bell curve there of the fish, and it spits them out. And then we have a hard number as to how many fish are in each pond because it counts all the fish as it tags them and spits them out. The feds basically handle that. We help them out a little bit. We crowd the fish and put them in a pen, our own little net pen that we put inside the pond.
How do they move from the pond to the trailer?
Buckets.
Okay.
The buckets of water and sometimes nets. Depends on how close the pond is to the trailer. But I think usually they'll put them in a bucket full of water. And then they've got a tank inside. I don't think there's a picture of it, but there's a holding tank inside. So then before we stock, all the fish get disease sampled twice. When we first put them in the inside tanks, we'll do a viral only sampling on them. And those samples go down to Purdue's Animal Disease Diagnostics Lab. And then later on, we'll do a more of a thorough study where we pull some kidneys, some spleen, and tissue samples and send them down, and they'll do other bacterial sampling and everything else because we don't want to be stocking sick fish. Then before we stock, we do a quality assessment. So we'll go through and we've got a book with grades where we'll check everything. We'll check the hindgut, the spleen, the fat levels in the fish. We'll pull through and we'll visually inspect the liver, the kidney, the bile, and then sex the fish. The Chinook are a little hard because the smaller they are, the harder they are to look at. But we want our fish to be healthy. We don't want them to be super fat. We don't want them to have no fat. But some species are a little more fat than others. The coho are fat. I think we could throw dirt in there and they'd eat it. The Chinook, it's almost like they put all of their energy into their growth and they don't store fat. So the Chinook, when we stock them, they don't have much fat in them. We've fed them, it's almost like they just want to grow. So we did manage to get some pictures the first year you put the net pen in. I failed to take pictures when we put the fish in this year, or the first year. So I didn't have any of those pictures, but they went into the net pen. And I think they were empty here, but this is some of the, when we stock from the bridges, we've got a tube and we just pull it, and I'm not even sure which site. That almost looks like Trail Creek right there on Muir Road. Yeah. But we'll crowd all the fish. We'll run these screens around the pond, so all the fish will be in this little pie here. And then we'll do a weight sample. After the weight sample's done, we've got a scale there, so we load all the fish up and hand lift them up into the truck. Steelhead, when we were doing that, I think in 3 days we were lifting about 20,000 pounds up on the truck. Each pond will hold roughly 2,000 pounds of fish. And then this was what we stocked this year. East Chicago, your number you were supposed to get was 75,000. This is what we stocked at night, and this was what went into the net pen. Little Calumet, their assignment for that site was 100,000. Trail Creek was also 100,000. So that was the total that we stocked. We were roughly 25,000 fish short, 30,000 fish short. So this goes into the next discussion. Cold water disease. Several years ago, the federal government decided that if we are going to treat our fish with antibiotics, we have to have a veterinarian come in and tell us the fish are sick, and we have to send samples of those fish to La Crosse Lab, it's a federal Fish and Wildlife Service lab in Wisconsin. So we collect the fish, we ship them to La Crosse. They get them, they run the disease stuff on them. It takes them 2 to 3 weeks to give us results. So while we're waiting for results, we're losing anywhere from 300 to 1,000 fish a day. And then they tell us that they have it. We order medicated feed from the state of Washington, and I think we just ordered 9 bags, and it was just under $1,500 for 9 44-pound bags. I have a good relationship with our vet. He does not know squat about fish, so I tell him we got cold water disease, he writes me a prescription. And this year he wrote me the prescription for 6 months. So anytime the fish get cold water disease, I can purchase food and use that same prescription. They can't ship food without the prescription. This is a slide of what cold water disease looks like.
How do you know if a fish has it?
What's that?
How do you know if a fish has it?
There's some other signs, and so this year our Chinook got cold water disease right before they were going to the net pen. And I did not have the food quite yet. And I had to make the decision, do we hold the fish there and not possibly even give East Chicago the net pen fish? Or do I give them sick fish and hope that once they get out in the lake, they'll recover a little bit? They did. So the feed came, and I ran over, I can't remember how many bags it was that day that the feed came. And they went ahead and I gave them how much to feed the fish, and I think they probably recovered within 5 days, and the mortality started dropping down. But I was kind of in a pickle there. I didn't exactly know what to do. I know you guys wanted the fish.
They were gonna die in Hatchery in the lake one way.
Yeah.
Our mortality rate wasn't much different than what you guys had.
No, I think I looked at that and it was within 1%.
Right.
And they probably got stressed a little more because we loaded them on the truck and hauled them over there. So here it probably, well, that's just a fancy name of what it is, but I think some of this was this trying to. So there's not much you can do about this. In a hatchery situation, you're always going to have the fish crowded. The water temperatures and stuff we can't monitor. But this is, we've got some pictures here of what the external signs of it looks like. You'll get a lot of times the saddle mark here, you'll get some erosion on the fins. You'll get these lesions. It almost looks like a flesh-eating bacteria or something. It's really weird. But, they'll, to the point that...
Did like wire tagging and stuff have anything to do with that?
It does not help. It's just more stress you're putting on the fish, and any kind of stress opens up that fish to disease. I'm not sure. We've been having more outbreaks lately with cold water disease, and I think some of the other states have been seeing the same thing. So we don't know what it is.
Is that something the truck bouncing around?
No.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Usually like in one hatchery and then they go shoot to the next one.
Yeah, well, these are all eggs too. Whenever, we don't move fish from hatchery to hatchery. If we do, it's when they're on that inside system, because that inside system is first use water. So it's water coming straight out of the wells.
No, I'm saying like the tag truck.
Oh, well, they disinfect that too they disinfect it when they arrive at our hatchery, and then they disinfect it before they leave. And then when they get to the next hatchery, they disinfect it again before they even, and they're running bleach. I mean, they're gallons of bleach they're running through that thing, disinfecting everything. This is just more pictures. So this was actually a culture that they grew with it, and that's just more pictures there. Some of that, I think, I just wanted to, cold water disease is a nasty disease. So, and this was kind of what I was saying, the VFD, the Veterinarian Feed Directive, medicated feed. Basically, it takes 2 to 3 weeks for us to get the medicated feed after we've diagnosed it. So when the vet wrote me a prescription for 6 months, I now try to keep, I got 8 bags of medicated feed right now in the deep freezer. And we just got done treating the winter run steelhead with it. So prevention, the reduced stress, but you're in a hatchery where you're gonna have the high amounts and stuff. But this is kind of when you've got the net pen. I know I kind of tried to stress pulling out the dead fish or whatever, but this even just confirms it even more. To minimize some of the stuff, when these fish get that cold water disease, they shed that. So if you can get them out, even if you see the swimmers swimming around with the fungus on their tails, just go ahead and net them out. They're going to die anyways. What's happening is while they're swimming around, they're shedding that bacteria, and then the other fish are catching it. And And I think one of the other things with the resistance, I think they're a little afraid that over-treating will, and like any other bacteria or antibiotic, they'll eventually build a resistance to it, or the bacteria will. So I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?